And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Today's sea ice analysis showing about in the same position it was yesterday, and this general position here shouldn't change too much over the weekend with light wind conditions across much of the Bering Sea. And from there, looking at tonight's weather, high pressure here, the center, just south of the central Aleutians, but real quiet conditions here for the Bering Sea tonight. Weak front bringing some more light snow into the western Arctic coast and the northwest coast as well. A few scattered snow showers over the interior here, but drying out and colder over the western part of the state. Light snow continues. Prince William Sound area with moisture into the panhandle. For tomorrow, this low slowly moving eastward, and still a trough coming up in southwest flow, keeping showers over the southeast coastal areas with snow showers, Prince William Sound, and turning an arm, Girdwood, northeast into the Copper River Basin, but becoming sunny for Cook Inlet and the Susitna Valley. On down to Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay, much of the southern central Bering Sea here, some snow showers along this trough up in that area, and maybe a little bit of light rain out over the western Aleutians. Otherwise, kind of the calm before the storm as gale and storm force winds come in with a strong low here pushing in along the Aleutians. Warm front for some snow up over the northern interior, high pressure, mostly sunny skies, Bristol Bay, light winds, that pattern right across southern Alaska, and still showery and unsettled for the southeast coast. Coastal water forecast, west-southwesterlies 15 to 20 knots here on the south coast, north coast, north and central coast, southwest 15 knots, Lynn Canal, southerlies 20 knots. Otherwise, Clarence Strait south at 10 and Stevens Passage, southeast winds 15 knots, and seas running 3 to 5 feet over the inside channels. And then for Sunday, west-northwest winds here for the south coast of 15 knots and northwesterlies 10 to 15 knots up along the north coast. And otherwise, variable to northwest winds at 10 knots with the inside channels with 2-foot seas. Light east winds for Prince William Sound tomorrow, seas down around 2 feet. Otherwise, east winds 15 knots for the eastern North Gulf Coast, western coast north at 15. Good gales though for Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands, west-northwest 35 to 40 knots. North winds 15 knots for Cook Inlet. And then for the day on Sunday, west-northwest breeze 10 to 15 knots for Cook Inlet with mostly clear conditions, seas down to 3 feet here. Gale warnings continue for Kamishak Bay, right on down across the Barren Islands at 35 knots with seas around 10 feet, northwest 15 for the North Gulf Coast and Prince William Sound. Kodiak Island, Saturday, northwest 25 to 30 knots, northwest 20 for Bristol Bay. Alaska Peninsula, northwest winds 20 to 25 knots with 4 to 8 foot seas. And for Sunday, Bristol Bay, west winds 15 knots. Variable to northwest winds here, 10 to 20 knots for the Alaska Peninsula, and west-northwest winds at 25 knots for Kodiak Island. Eastern Aleutians, Saturday, north winds 15 to 20 knots. Light variable winds under high pressure for Adak and Atka, and the western Aleutians, south to southwest winds 20 knots. And then for Sunday, gales and storms here coming into the central Aleutians with that strong low center. South 50 knots for Adak and Atka, south-southeast 45 to 50 knots for Amchitka Island. Then coming around to the north and northeast at 35 knots for the area from Kiska to Shemya. And for the Unalaska Island area, south to southeast winds 20 to 25 knots. And then for the southwest coast and St. Lawrence Island, west winds 20 knots tomorrow. Southwest 15 for Norton Sound, west winds 25 knots, St. Matthew Island, St. Paul and St. George, west winds 15 knots. And then for Sunday, south winds 20 knots, St. Matthew, St. Paul and St. George Islands here out in the Bering Sea, seas running 5 to 6 feet, west 15 knots for the Kuskokwim Delta coast. And for Norton Sound, St. Lawrence Island, Yukon Delta coast, look for a southwest wind on Sunday at 15 knots. And the eastern Beaufort Sea coast for Saturday, west-southwest 15 to 20 knots, southwest 20 knots, central and western Arctic coast, and for the Chukchi Sea, southwest and northwest winds at 25 knots. They'll swing around to the south and southeast here for the Chukchi Sea on Sunday at 20 knots. And for the Arctic coast, west-southwest winds at about 15 knots.